Hello, well, I'm going to do another answer video to one of the record threads here that I found interesting. The one I found was called the $1,000,000 Thread, and it's made by jeffrecordman1958, in which he wants us to show us some of the records that we spent, well, a lot of money on. I'm happy to say that in most cases I don't remember how much money I spent on records, and on a single record or album I don't spend that much on one actual album. But there are some exceptions that I spend a bit more on, and I'm going to show them to you. I'm not going to tell you how much I spent on them because I don't remember, apart from the record that I spent most money on. And I've showed that before in this YouTube channel in another video, but I can show it again, no problem. And I'll start by showing you this one. This is Josh White, The Story of John Henry, a musical narrative, and also ballads, blues, and other songs on Elektra from 1955 in mint condition. And I spent, well, I don't remember what I spent, but it wasn't dead. Oh, it wasn't super expensive, but it wasn't super cheap either. I spent some of money on this. Then I've showed this next record in another thread before. Karen Dalton, In My Own Time. I bought this in Uppsala a couple of years ago, and I remember that it was quite expensive, but I thought it was worth it because it's quite rare to find. And I had just realized who she was and heard her albums on CD, so I thought, well, I want this, so I bought it. Up in my old hometown, Luleå, there's a record store called Musica, and the guy who owns that store, a very nice guy called Kister, he got in a big bunch of albums of Swedish 60s beat music, and all in mint condition. So we sold them off bit by bit for, well, rather a large sum, but still, if I tried to find these albums here down in Stockholm, where there is a bigger market, I would have to pay way more than I did up there. So the most famous 60s band, or the best 60s band in Sweden, was a band called Tages. And I found their first album here, and it's in mint condition. And I know that there are some collectors out there who would drool over the idea of having this album. And what did I pay for it? Around $50 maybe, and that's some around $50. But still, it would probably be more expensive if I found it in a store here in Stockholm. And also at the same time I found their second album, Tages 2. So I bought that as well for the same sum. A year later I got back and looked through the same records, and there were still some of them that I was interested in that I couldn't afford then. But then I got back and noticed that nobody else had bought them, so I did it then. There was a Swedish 60s beat gang from northern Sweden. I come from northern Sweden. They come from even way up north in Kiruna, called the Shanes. And I got two of their albums here. The Shane Gang on Columbia in mint condition, and Shanes again, also on Columbia in mint condition. I think these are from 1966, well, around 66. And I paid around $50 for these each. Now over to a record that, well, it is a very sought after album, and I paid some around, well, $40 for it. This is a reissue, but a reissue that was only printed in 1,000 copies. It's the the Swedish singer Doris. Did You Give the World Some Love Today, Baby from 1970. That was a big flop when it was released, although it is a super great album. Um, and it has become one of the most sought after albums in Sweden since that. Since then, and an original copy would be extremely expensive. And this is a reissue, as I said, and it's a very good reissue. And I can show you. It's even uses the old Odeon label from the time, and this copy even is in blue vinyl, which is a nice feature. And then another thing that made it well worth the purchase is the fact that it's signed here by the drummer Janne Loffe Karlsson here in silver ink at the back, down on the sleeve here. That's really cool. I like Janne Karlsson Loffe. He's great actor and great drummer, first of all. Right, some more prog. One of my favorite prog groups in Sweden is a group called Kebnekaise, and I bought their first album here, Resa mot okänt mål. I think it's from 1971, and the sleeve looks a bit VG+, but the record is super fine, and this was, I don't recall exactly what I paid for it, but it wasn't for free. The Swedish-Dutch singer and songwriter Cornelis Vreeswijk, he made lots of records, and many of them sold very good, and some of them sold a bit worse. He made a recording that is very sought after today. It's called Jazz Incorporated. It was recorded in 1979 for Sarepta. This is a reissue, released 2 years later on the Four Leaf Records, and it's the original version is very rare and quite expensive. But this is also quite expensive when you find it, because it's quite rare too. Not as rare though as the original. So I paid a bit for this. Then we come to a Swedish dance band. And this is one of the most popular Swedish dance bands still today, called Lasse Stefans. There's no big picture of them here, but I can show you the backside of this album. This was their 5th album for the record label Habima, and they were just going to have their big breakthrough because they had a song on this album called Vid en liten fiskehamn, who would become a great hit in 2 years later. But they recorded this song on this album from 1979, I think it is. Darling, it's called, Lasse Stefans. But the main reason why this is so sought after and why we often have to pay a lot of money to get hold of this is because the record company actually was bankrupt almost at the same time as this record got out in the store, or not long after. So it's very rare. Still, I've seen on the auction sites that this record has now started to be sold there much more often than before. So it may drop a bit in value and price because it's getting more and more copies out there available. But it's a very, very nice album, and I had to pay a bit for this. I don't remember how much. And now over to the record that I paid most for, and I bought it on the record fair. And when I saw it, I have shown this in another video. So those of you, if there are any, who have a good idea of my videos, you already know which record it is. I wanted this record for many years because I collect them, but when I found it at a record fair north of Stockholm, I thought, well, it's very good and it's in very good condition, and I don't know when I will have the opportunity to buy this the next time because it's so rare. But still, quite expensive, quite expensive. They wanted approximately, if you would convert Swedish currency kronor to American dollar, it would have cost around $108. So obviously I was a bit hesitant. So I walked through the whole record fair and found a couple of good records that I wanted, and I thought, well, if that record is still there when I'm through, and if I still have enough money when I'm through, checking through all the other record sellers or record dealers there, I will buy it. And as a matter of fact, I had enough money to get it, and it was still for sale. It was still there when I bought it. Here it is. It's the first album of the Swedish pop rock group The Streetlers, who later became one of the most popular dance orchestras in Sweden. But this was when they were still a rocking band, rock band. This is from 1964. It was released on Columbia, and it was quite rare for Swedish rock groups to make albums in 1964. So obviously it's quite rare. And I bought this for, if I remember correctly, approximately $108. And that is by far the most expensive album that I've ever bought. So I think that's it. That's my answer to Jeff Recordman 1958.